Hi everyone. Welcome to the SORMAS 1.104 release walkthrough. We released the new version of SORMAS on July 14th, and we're really excited to share all the new features that we've added to the latest version. My name is Emmeline, and I'm a project manager. At the SORMAS Foundation, I manage the implementation of SORMAS in Luxembourg, and I'll invite my colleague Harold to introduce himself.
Thank you, Emmeline. Yes, my name is Harold. I'm a developer, SORMAS. Yeah, I'll be presenting new features dealing with the samples and tests, and yeah, happy to see you all. I'll hand over to Jan to introduce himself.
Thank you very much. My name is Jan Böhme, Managing Director for Technology Operations at the SORMAS Foundation, and I will also be showing you the most important features of this release.
Thanks, Jan. So now we're going to go over some of the latest features. And as Jan said, this is just the most important ones, but it's not everything. So if you want to see more, you can check out the release notes. I'll put the link in the chat, and you can also test out the latest version on the demo system. So I'll be putting those links both in the chat. But if you have questions throughout the presentation, you can put them in the chat as well, or there's a Q&A box. I think that allows you maybe to submit an anonymous question. So I'll be monitoring both throughout the presentation, and also we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So I think we can get started. Heading over to Harold.
Right, I'll get to it. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
So I'll take you through the new samples and tests. I won't show everything. The most important features, starting off with samples. For example, now samples are directly mapped to the SNOMED CT, whereby mapped into SORMAS, and they're recorded into SORMAS, and which is the international terminology, and can be exchanged with other lab systems. The code within SORMAS, in that, for example, if you were to export samples from this button in here, I won't show that. The SNOMED code is also added to that. Then the second most important thing, samples now. The type of sample is filtered by disease. So each disease has its own specific samples. And for example, this is COVID. It has a number of samples, as you can see. Then if I'm to show you another disease, I'll say malaria. Yeah. Samples list. So I'll just go back to the case here and create a new sample for it. And the type of sample list is narrowed down, specific to malaria only. Then the second way to filter is that some countries do not show all samples, for example, like Luxembourg. So some of the types of samples are not shown. Then second of all, to just go through a simple sample creation. And so these are all required fields. Just input so click and see samples for this case, and click on that. So this is the samples form. This is the existing form. Some fields were removed, but not much has changed in here. So the main focus was trying to align the type of samples with the SNOMED codes. Then moving on to the tests, we revamped the test form. Each tested disease now has a test category. for each specific type of test. There are a couple of categories listed below. So when you select, say, antigen detection, this filters narrows down the filter for the type of test. Previously, you had to just, this where the category was not present, and you had to scroll through a whole variety of tests. So if I'm to switch to, say, molecular assays, the type of test list also automatically changes to the test type that matches the category you selected. One simple bypass, say if you're not sure about a category, you can just type, if you're not sure about a category to test, to input. This, when you click the drop down for the type of test, it lists all the tests that are available for the malaria disease, for example. So when you select the type of test, it automatically pre-fills the category for you so that you don't have to select a category. Then proceeding, now the date and time of the results is mandatory. That wasn't there previously. And say when you try to input a date field, say in the future and whatnot, get flagged that the date and time cannot be in the future as well. Then moving on from the tests and type of tests. Now the test results are no longer the simple positive, negative that was there previously. Different types of tests have different types of results. The LAMP, and for example, LAMP still shows the previous test result. But if I'm to say select something like PCR, just pick something like single sequencing. So the type of test does not, it's no longer about whether it's positive or negative. It requires an identity of itself. It basically just have to describe, say, for example, if you select this, you can only just input the results of this, and that will be served. Then if I'm to go to another disease, because the different diseases have different, the form auto-populates the fields based on the disease, the test category, and the type of test you select. Since the type of tests are now specific to a disease, the form will auto change and show the fields that are specific for that disease. Let me select another disease, samples list. I'll come to, say, select IMI. If I want to add a new test for IMI, and select the antibiotics that word testing, the form shows up these types of antibiotics. You can select the method, the MIC zone. Previously, this was a field that was limited to only a float value, but now you can enter any value and say 0.25, then select the interpretation. And yes, depending on the values entered, you can enter some results details in here. I'll just enter test results. And save that. So then the results, the tests are shown here, depending on the test type you've selected. For this one, the results you entered are showing up there. Then there are different icons that show up here. This shows that it was sent to an external message through to an external laboratory. So this was verified by a lab supervisor. There are other icons that show up like confirm. There's one for an institution. The icons are different. I would love to show them, but no. So it's external messages. Okay, so I think. So, but anyway, so there are different kinds of icons that show up there. One will be a tick in a circle. Then there will be an icon for an institution, which states that this was performed by a reference lab. Then there's a refresh icon that also shows up. Then there's an information icon that shows up that says the test results were recorded but not shown in the summary line here. Say, for example, if it's a bit longer than that. Then we also revamped the test results. As you can see, when you add the test results as it was previously, these results would get added to the bottom. I'll just add a quick other one. As you can see, when I select Western blot, there's a different field that shows up for it, and you can save. Oh, sorry, what about that? So they are now sorted by the most recent, which comes on top, and so that was also sorted out. Then when there was another feature that was added when you come to the case, for example, we added a dedicated lab results tab, which consolidates all the samples and results that were added for this case. So you'll see the tests that were recorded, you'll see the samples and the AST tests that were also recorded. So I think that's pretty much it. Not exhausted everything, but I think for your reference, you can always check the updated wiki. More information was added on there. So that's pretty much it from my presentation. I'll hand over to Ian.
Thank you so much. Then I will move over to the rework of the exposure form, because just like the samples and test results form, there was a complete overhaul of exposures that we did with version 1.104. It now also, just like the cases in the samples and test form, will change depending on which disease you are entering an exposure for. So just like before, let's say, for example, we take a malaria case. Then we navigate to the epidemiological data tab. And at the top, you see exposure details known. If we set this to yes, we have the option to create an exposure. And this form now looks completely different than before. We can enter a date, start of exposure and end of exposure. The type of activity for this presentation, let's assume that somebody traveled, for example. You can provide a description of what exactly happened during the exposure. And this is the big change. We have this exposure details section down here, where you can select what kind of exposure exactly happened. So in this case, because it's malaria, you are only able to select vector-borne, because that's the only one that is relevant here. And it will also default to mosquito-borne. And now you can give some more detailed information. So for example, where exactly has the exposure happened? Let's assume, okay, the person traveled near a swamp area, for example, and there was a lot of mosquito activity going on in that area, but the person was wearing protective clothing. All of this can now be entered directly into the exposure form. And if you want to, you can also add a location of exposure, even with GPS coordinates, so you know exactly where everything happened. if I save this, then, for example, switch over to shigellosis case. Do the same thing again, exposure details known, click on new entry. And if I now go to exposure details, you will see that there are a lot more of exposure categories that you can select from. And every single exposure category has their own details that you can enter. Let's, for example, say there was an animal contact. What was the condition of the animal? When exactly did it happen? What protective measures have been applied while the exposure has been happening? And yeah, that's basically how the new exposure form works. And the great thing is that while we provide you with default configurations for every single disease and what kind of exposures are relevant for the disease, all of this is 100% customizable directly through the user interface. So if you go to the admin section, you go to the disease configuration, and let's say we open the configuration for shigellosis. And you will see down here that you can specify different exposure categories that you want the exposure form to show for this specific disease. And then it will adjust accordingly. No software development needed. Just click on here, click save, and everything will be updating automatically. Okay, then that's all for the exposure form. In terms of new diseases, we have added full support for 2 new diseases to the international version. Shigellosis, I already showed you. This is one of the new ones. And the other ones that we now have in SORMAS is salmonellosis. And basically everything works as you're used to. You can create cases, contacts where applicable, and just track all the information in the case investigation form and all the other parts of SORMAS, where you normally would put things like symptoms, the epi data that I just showed you, clinical course, and yeah, everything else. Then the next big improvement is connected to the immunization module. So if you open an old case, if you update to 1.104, this is important to know, so you're not confused what is happening. If the immunization module in SORMAS is activated, SORMAS will now automatically calculate the correct vaccination status for a person. There's no need to set anything manually. You just enter the information. The system will automatically know, is this person currently vaccinated or not? And the effect that this has is if you open an old case, you may get this pop-up, vaccination status update. This will happen if the system doesn't yet know what the vaccination status is. You can just click on yes, and then the calculation will be happening in the background. So for example, for this case, you can see that this person is currently unvaccinated. To change this, you would create a new immunization for that person. Let's set this to vaccination. And then valid from and valid until is relevant for the calculation. This basically tells the system from which date the vaccination is effective until which date. So let's assume that, for example, the vaccination in this case started to be effective on the 1st of July, and it is effective for, let's say, 3 years. And the person was supposed to get 1 dose of that vaccine. We'll save this. And if we now go back to the case, you will see that it still says unvaccinated. The reason for this is because currently this is considered a scheduled immunization in the system, because you told the system the person is supposed to get one dose of vaccine. But if you look down here, you see, okay, there is no vaccine yet entered into the system. So if we go in here, click on new entry, and select the vaccine, can give a lot of details here, but for this demonstration, I will just skip this, and we save it. If we now go back to the case, you will see that it's here says immunization status acquired, management status complete. And that is basically how the calculation works. I think I forgot one thing. I should have set the vaccination date. That is extremely important. Should be the 1st of July in that case. Save it again. And now it says, because it now was able to calculate everything, the system will give you an informational pop-up that the vaccination status was automatically updated, because now the system has all the information that it needs to actually do it. And yeah, that is how the immunization calculation works at the moment. In case that you prefer to do it manually, that's still possible. You can deactivate automatic automatic vaccination calculation in the system settings. And then you will just be able to set it manually like you're used to for other systems. And the next feature that I would like to show you, this is very dear to my heart, because this is one thing that I personally always wanted to see in SORMAS, which is customizable fields. So the team has been very hard at work. Would also like the opportunity to thank the team for putting all this effort into this. You are now able to directly create additional data entry fields in SORMAS without a software developer who needs to change anything in the code, which is, in my opinion, a gigantic milestone that we wanted to achieve, and now we finally have it. To do this, you need to be an administrator, and if you go into the system configuration, you will see a new tab at the top, which is called Customizable Fields. And this is where the magic happens. If you click on Create, we'll get this field, this form, where you can completely customize everything that you want to see, how the field should behave. For example, let's just call it a test field. On the right, you can select from different field types, so exactly what you want. Those are the exact field types that you are used to in SORMAS. So a small text, a large text, a number, a decimal point number, basically everything that you could need. For this example, let's do a checkbox list. You can click on field options to just add multiple answers that we want to have in the checkbox. And if we go to the default value here, for example, if we go to the field options, we can basically enter multiple checkboxes that will then appear in the system. Description, you can add some more information, what this field is about. Under placement, what you can do here is you can select where this field should be visible. For now, you are able to place customizable fields on the case investigation form, on the epi data form, or on the exposure form. This is something that we want to add more contexts to in the future. For now, let's go with the case investigation form. And on the UI group, you can select where exactly on the form the new field should show up. For this demonstration, let's select case data general. Line position and line weight, you can use it even more to customize exactly where it will show up. Under behavior, you can say, hey, okay, this field is active, it can be filled. Let's, for example, say this should be mandatory as well. And then you can create different, or you can basically restrict if this field shows up for specific diseases. If you don't select anything, it will just show up for all diseases. And down here, translations, I will show you that in a second. But for now, let's check that it works correctly. So I have now created this field on the case context. And if I now open any case, we see here that suddenly a new field has shown up with 4 different answers that you can select and save. If you mouse over the field, then it will show you the description as well. And there's also a light yellow background, so you are easily able to identify which fields are default fields that come with SORMAS and which fields have been added as customizable fields after the fact by an administrator. And by using this feature, you are basically able to customize how the forms look like. If there is something in your country that you absolutely need to collect, considering specific data, you no longer have to change the system directly. You can just go into the configuration, create the customizable field, and then everything is immediately ready to use. And maybe just to show you the translations, if we go back to the customizable field, currently the system is set to English, so I will just create a translation for English. Say, okay, this is the English translation. If we go back to the case form, you will see that it now says English translation. Okay, there's a typo in here, but it will just basically always update to the correct language. If I switch to French, for example, then it will still show up, but it will just show you the default name of the field. If there would be a translation configured for French, then it would just show the French translation. And that's the short breakdown of how customizable fields work. We will also publish an in-depth tutorial on how these work on the YouTube channel a little bit later this year. But for the system demo, this is how you can use the customizable fields, which is a big step forward, like I said. And with that, I think the presentation of the biggest features is complete. I would also like, of course, to acknowledge our partners, because without those partners, we would not have been able to even do it. So thank you very much for your support of SORMAS, that you believe in the open source approach that we are following, so that everyone is able to profit from all those developments. And specifically, I would like to thank the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg and the European Union, who are co-funding the FRESH project, where most of those features have come out from, as well as the Global Program for Pandemic Resilience, One Health, which is financed by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. So thank you very much. It wouldn't have been possible without you.